So we got the inflation numbers, and let me tell you that they were a lot worse than anyone actually expected. And so what we got on the markets was we actually got a little leg down on the markets. Now, if you look at the markets right now, what you'll notice is that the NASDAQ, so that's the leg that we actually got down. And you can see Bitcoin went down to 67,572 or so. But if you look at the NASDAQ continues to be down, but Bitcoin recovered completely. And there's a little lesson in there. So we're going to talk about what actually happened, what the market is interpreting these inflation numbers, whether we should actually worry about these inflation numbers, because a lot of people are actually now saying, well, the inflation numbers are going to mean that Powell's not actually going to reduce rates, and that's going to obliterate crypto. A lot of people are also very, very, very worried about their altcoin bags, because if you look at your altcoin bags, and I'm sure you're probably feeling this, we have another red day in altcoins. But the reality is that when you look at your altcoin bags, we've actually had quite a severe correction on altcoins. Some of our favorite altcoins are actually down like 40% and 30%. And so we've been in this almost, you could say, like a silent, brutal correction. And the question is whether it's actually time to maybe start buying now. So today it's all about the inflation numbers, what they actually mean, what this altcoin cycle, what's actually happening with the altcoins, and why Bitcoin actually bounced back. So we're here in Paris, bringing you crypto love and crypto wisdom. Let's do this, guys. Let's go. Look. I know there's a lot of you that are complaining that we're late again, and why are we late again? And the reality is, guys, here I am in Paris, bringing you crypto love and crypto wisdom when I should actually be at conferences and stuff like that. So I think maybe instead of complaining that we are late, let's be happy that we're here, that we're bringing you a show. There's a massive show today. I'm going to talk to you about the inflation numbers, and there's a lot to talk about when it comes to inflation numbers, because the numbers, in a nutshell, were really, really, really bad. There's no other way to put it. And there's a lot of concerns now that maybe the interest rate cuts won't be coming, and what does it actually mean for the markets? Also, look, I don't know about you, but when I look at my altcoin bags, I know it doesn't feel like it because we haven't had like a big leg down. But the reality is that if you look at some of the big altcoins, like Injective's down 40%, Immutable X is down 31%, Akash is down 40%, Render's down 35%. So we actually very, very, very much in the midst of a massive silent altcoin correction. So it's an altcoin correction, but it's not like this brutal altcoin correction. It's silent and slow, and this is what's going to cause people to capitulate. So we have a lot to talk about, because we've got to talk about our altcoins. Are our altcoin bag safe? Are we going to get rate cuts this year? We've got lots to talk about today. So listen, if you are new to the channel, here I am bringing you crypto love and crypto wisdom. Subscribe to the channel. This is where you're going to get the highest alpha per minute shows. Guys, I can tell you one thing. We are absolutely changing lives out there. You know, I was walking through the conferences today. Fans came to me. They want to take pictures. They reminded me how much we've actually been changing their lives, etc. In fact, we even had one fan. I got to show you how cool this is. This is like unbelievable. I'm not going to mention names, even though I probably should, but I'm not going to mention names. But I had a fan who was standing, watching us today, and she was wearing these very, very, very cool Ray-Ban glasses. And these are the Facebook Meta glasses where you can actually have meetings, and they got speakers and Zoom calls, and you can take photos and stuff like that. And I said, wow, are these the Meta glasses? And she said, yeah, try them. And I tried them, and it was like so incredible. She said, look, you can have them. I was like, we really are changing lives as a community. I didn't expect this. This is an amazing gift. You know who you are. Thank you very much. I'm not going to mention your name just in case, for your privacy, but thank you very much. And if you see me, guys, I don't need gifts. I promise you, I don't need gifts. So I do want to talk to you a lot about also what I saw in Paris today. I'm here at Paris Blockchain Week. I went to I went to Basecamp, 𝗬𝗍𝗍 Basecamp, which is the big 𝗬𝗍 conference. Let me tell you, I'm going to show you exactly what I learned at the 𝗬𝗍 conference, and maybe there's a new ecosystem that we should actually be investing in. So listen, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Smash the like button. Let's get the show on the road. Let's talk about everything that is happening today, and there is a lot happening today. I guess we can start off by looking at the good news. What's the good news? The good news is, guys, the CME gap is closed. Like the CME gap that we were talking about is actually closed, which is amazing. So I said to you guys that I was worried about the CME gap not being closed, and it finally got closed. Now, why did the CME gap actually get closed? Well, the CME gap got closed because we had bad inflation numbers. And not only were the inflation numbers bad, but The inflation numbers were much worse than anyone expected. Remember that what we had here was we had inflation actually down at, like 2.9% or 3% or somewhere around there. And if you look at the last couple of months, inflation's actually started going up. We had a 3.1 reading, we had a 3.2 reading, and today, when everyone expected a 3.3 or a 3.4 reading, we actually got a bad reading. We got a 3.5 reading. So if you look at, again, let's just go back to it. Yesterday, when we looked at the expectations from the market were like 3.3, 3.4%. Only Wells Fargo and Scotiabank said it's going to be at 3.5%. And so we got much higher than expected inflation numbers. And to make things actually worse than what it is, so the numbers were, the CPI was 3.5%. The core CPI was 3.8%. So very much these inflation numbers are not exactly, let's say this, they're not exactly very, very encouraging, so to speak. So, and if you want to know what actually makes up the CPI, car insurance inflation is up 22.2%. Transportation inflation is up 10.7%. Car repair inflation up 8.2%. Hospital services 7.5%. So even though the inflation is 3%, like this is what Americans are actually feeling right now. This is actually what Americans are actually feeling right now. The bad part about this is the following. This is now the fourth consecutive month where the inflation numbers have actually come in higher than the estimates. What does this mean? Why is everyone concerned about this? I'll tell you what this means. It means that the market is bullish. So the market has these bullish inclinations right now, and these bullish inclinations lead the market to have a bias in the forecasts. And in their forecast bias, the market is always forecasting inflation lower than what inflation actually is. So imagine it's like when you're looking at something with rose-colored glasses. The market wants to be bullish. And in wanting to be bullish, what the market is actually doing is that he's saying, let's forecast inflation, and they are forecasting inflation to be lower than the actual numbers are coming out. And it's the fourth time that this is happening. Now, the problem with this is that the expectations and the narrative of the market are not falling into the reality of what the data is that's coming out. And that is a big problem. That's showing that the market and that the optimistic outlook of the market and the reality of the data that's actually coming out are starting to be separated. Here's the problem with that you can have the expectations doing this, and you have the data doing this. And what you're doing is that you're starting to create this gap between reality, which is the data, and market perception, which is this line over here. Now, those gaps can actually lead to huge corrections. So if you have this for a long period of time, and you have the one chart going up in terms of market perceptions and bullishness, and then on the other side, you have the data, which is getting worse and worse and worse, eventually you cause a huge gap. Now, that gap has to close. How does the gap close? Well, either the market spikes up, which in this case probably won't happen because the data is the one on the bottom, or the market spikes down. And that's what the market's actually starting to worry about. Because when you've had this difference between actual data and expectations of data for 4 consecutive months, the market starts to worry that maybe the market is reading the data wrong, and maybe you have this perception bias. Maybe the market has this perception bias. Maybe the market wants to be bullish, but it's not bullish. It's not bullish out there. You know what it's like? It's like you want it to be hot, so you go outside and you keep wearing a t-shirt. And on the first day in winter, you go outside, you keep wearing a t-shirt, you're cold, but you're still bullish that it's going to get warm. The next day you go outside, you put on a t-shirt, it's cold, you think it's going to get warm. By the 4th day, you've got pneumonia and COVID, and then eventually you crash. And that's basically what's starting to happen right now. So we have to pay attention to this. We have to pay attention to the difference between sentiment, what the market thinks is going to happen, or what the market wants to happen in this case, and the actual reality of the data that's coming out. And if this carries on for a long period of time, then maybe we have to change our thesis about the fact that there is a bull market ahead. Because everyone's got this thesis that it's a huge bull market, there's this huge liquidity coming out, the Fed's going to continue to increase rate. But hold on a second. What if we start getting the numbers going up? What if the numbers continue to go up? The Fed's going to have no choice but to actually not reduce rates, but they're going to have to just increase rates to actually contain this. And that is what the issue is here. The second thing is that this is the first 2-month increase in CPI since September 2023. In other words, this is the first 2 months where we've actually had increases in CPI. So 1, 2, from 3.1 to, here we reduced, here we went up, and here we went up again. So inflation now becomes what you call very much a lingering problem. And what happened when that happened was the stock markets actually went down quite a bit. The NASDAQ is still actually 1.19% down. So the NASDAQ actually went down quite a bit. But there is something interesting that happened in Bitcoin. We're going to talk about that a bit later. But you see, we went down, but then we actually reversed all our losses. And actually, we're higher now than before the CPI numbers came out. And I'm going to show you why that's actually happening and whether that could actually save our entire altcoin bags. The big thing now is that we thought that the Fed was going to reduce interest rates. Everyone initially said the Fed is now going to start reducing interest rates. People were talking about 3 interest rate cuts this year. And then after the last inflation numbers, it became like 2, maybe 3. And now if you look at the probabilities of where we're at, and I'll make this bigger because I know some of you guys are watching this through your mobile phones, but now we're saying, look, no rate cuts for the next 3 Fed meetings. And maybe 1 rate cut. It's only a 45% chance of 1 rate cut after that, and that's it. So now the market's basically saying, listen, there's only 1 rate cut this year. So we went from 3 rate cuts to 2 rate cuts, and now we've only got 1 rate cut focused for this year after the CPI information that actually started to come out. And so now what you're starting to get is people are starting to understand what I said a long time ago. I said, look, there's no way that the Fed cuts interest rates because they've got no reason to cut interest rates. The economy is still hot. You can't cut interest rates when markets are at all-time highs. I mean, yes, okay, the NASDAQ's come down from its all-time high over here, and you can see that, okay, we're down 2.45% from the all-time high on the NASDAQ. It's like crazy. But look where we are from November this year. We're 30% up on the NASDAQ. This is not a shitcoin. This is the NASDAQ. Now, what you got to remember is that as markets continue to go up, people feel richer. What do people do when they feel richer? They spend. And when they spend, what do? They drive prices up. And when they drive prices up, you know what happens? Inflation goes up. The Fed can't reduce rates. And that's what's happening now. The Fed is dealing with a rampant market that has perceptions, as we discussed, perceptions that don't correlate to the data. And, again, I'm not an alarmist, and I'm not one of these people I'm not a Peter Schiff. I'm not one of these people that predict recessions and predict market crashes and stuff like that. But I've got to be honest with you guys. If the data continues to show us that inflation is not going away and that the Fed can't reduce interest rates, and the market continues to price in interest rates, we've got to get a reality check and say, hold on a second. This whole thesis that we've got, that there's going to be more money in the economy, that there's going to be more liquidity in the economy, is actually not the correct thesis. And we have to change our minds about it. And that is one of the things that we're actually going to look at today. When does the time come for us to actually change the thesis? Or are we just going to be drunk on this like crypto bros cycle? This crypto bro cycle. Yo, bro, the number go up 4-year cycle. We have to actually pay attention to the reality. So that is why the market, what happened with the market today. And, as much as I hate to admit it, maybe Vinny's right. Like if we get 3 or 4 more interest rate inflation readings that are very high, maybe the market actually does, the Fed has no choice but to actually do 1 more rate hike before we do a rate cut. When we had Vinny on here last time, I was very much adamant that this is not going to happen. But hold on a second. If the data continues to do that, the data continues to do it. And that's really what we're going to look at. Remember, you want to be a smart investor? Use a data-led approach. Don't use an emotional-led approach. You invest based on emotion, you're going to get wiped. We're going to talk about that a bit later. Use a proper data-led approach. And if the data is misvalidating your thesis, remember that you've got to look at the reality of what's happening and not the hope of what you want to happen and try and justify it to yourself. Now, be honest with me in the comments. How many of you are maybe holding on to the hope of what you want to happen, and now you're looking at the data and you're going, it doesn't suit this, but I'm going to come up with some other bullshit reason why the market must go up. Because that is what you want hope to believe. And we'll talk about that in a couple of seconds, because I'm actually going to show you another couple of examples when it actually comes to that. Anyway, so when the market went down, and I want to show you what actually happened. So when the market went down here and hit like 67,535, I quickly went into the Banter Bubbles newsroom here. And what I said here was, I said that and I'll try and find you the actual thing, but I said the market has to bounce now. The market's going to bounce now. And that's actually exactly what happened. What you can see is that the market went down and then hit this like 67,500, and then the market completely bounced. And it was interesting that I wasn't the only one that saw this. In fact, a lot of people in crypto actually went and increased their leverage. Have a look at this. I'm going to try and zoom in here for those of you who are watching on your mobile phones. But what you can see here is that as soon as the price of Bitcoin went down, the market participants over here actually went and increased their leverage. They actually went and bought the dip, believe it or not. So while the markets were collapsing, while the macro data went down, I looked at this and I said, this market's going to bounce, buy the dip. Then you saw leverage being taken by a lot of crypto funds. And the reason why they did this is because, as 𝗦𝗚𝗘𝗏 says, I don't believe that this move, fading the higher than expected CPI, whether the Fed cuts 25 basis points in June or September or March, has anything to do with the long-term drivers of Bitcoin. And in fact, the reason why this market actually recovered is because, yes, they got the initial shock and the paper hands sold. But what happened after the paper hand sold was people said, hold on a second. Whoa. Yes, the Fed will cut interest rates. It might not be in September. It might not be in June. But that doesn't change the fact that all of a sudden what we're getting is this crazy inflow of a DCA bid in the ETF. So what 𝗕𝗔𝗡𝗟𝗏 says, many people are still calling tops on Bitcoin, not realizing that we've entered into a new paradigm. The ETF approval validated Bitcoin to another level for allocators all around the world. There has been a new global DCA bid, which has been activated, which drives its perpetual grind up. And so when you think about a delay in the increase of interest rates, and a decrease of interest rates, and you correlate that with this new demand that has actually been created, and someone actually plotted out this demand, and he said, Bitcoin monthly chart with the accumulation distribution indicator, and he finishes it off by saying, if you think BlackRock clients are out of cash, they've got 10 to 11 trillion parked just in BlackRock. They only hold 266,100 Bitcoin at the moment. And so what you're seeing is that there's a huge accumulation effect of Bitcoin right now, and all the charts are showing us exactly the same thing. So let's quickly look at the ETFs. GBTC, 155 million out. Grayscale, 130 million in. So what you're starting to see is that the Grayscale over here bleeding Bitcoin, and BlackRock increasing their demand of Bitcoin. Very, very, very soon, and maybe even before the halving, BlackRock will actually have more Bitcoin than Grayscale, which is exactly what we've been saying, and a really a positive sign, because it kind of means that eventually the Grayscale threat and this like puncture, that this air that was leaking out, is eventually just going to stop leaking out. And then what we just get is this DCA bid, as 𝗕𝗔𝗡𝗏 calls it, which is like a consistent increasing DCA bid as more Bitcoin products are approved all around the world. Now, some people said to me today when I was speaking about this, they said, yes, but when Bitcoin goes down, they're going to start selling Bitcoin. And yes, you might be right. I mean, you might be right that Bitcoin are going to start selling, BlackRock are going to start selling. But these investors didn't buy Bitcoin because they wanted Bitcoin for a month or 2 months or 3 months. They're not traders. These are people that are allocating 3% of their portfolios to Bitcoin. They don't care if it goes down 2%, 5%, 10%. They are allocating 3% of their entire portfolios to Bitcoin, and that DCA bid has just started. So that is why what happened today was we got the dip. We then recovered, and we're actually finding out, we're higher now than we were before this dip actually started. on Bitcoin. Definitely not on the altcoins. In fact, look at the altcoins on the daily. It's red. It's totally red. And we've got to talk about that because there are some worrying things about that. Anyway, as Miles says, the game plan is simple. Put your head down, get into the trenches, find top projects with strong narratives and great teams, accumulate on the extreme red days, don't flinch. Your conviction will actually pay off. And I agree with Miles. I think Miles is very smart when he says, don't pay attention to the noise. Don't pay attention to the stuff that is not long-term in nature. And don't pay attention to the noise. And when others are paying attention to the noise and Bitcoin goes down to 67,000 and the altcoins decide to crash, keep your head down, be level-headed, look for projects in narratives that are going to be in multi-cycles and continue to DCA into those projects and buy. And I agree with that 100%. But as Alex Becker said, and I don't know if it was in reply, but he said, listen, I have zero conviction in my trades that they will work out. Posts about conviction annoy me because they ride the line of having faith, aka emotional hoping. I have zero faith or no clue. He says, I have zero faith or no clue what will happen. And this is something that I want to talk to you guys about because what I think is that a lot of you are confusing conviction with hope. A lot of you are saying, I have conviction in my bags because these are the best bags, because this is going to change the cycle. And I heard some people talking at the conference today about some of their holdings. And I asked them questions about their holdings. Let me just fix my mic. I asked them questions about their holdings. And what did they say? They gave me 100 reasons why their holdings were actually good holdings. And you know what I heard? I heard people justifying to themselves why they were actually holding bags. That's not conviction. Convincing yourself because you want an outcome is not conviction. Conviction is when you look at the data and you take the data and you say, this is the data, this is why I think this protocols are going to change the world, and therefore you take your bets accordingly, okay? Be careful not to mix conviction with what you hope will happen, and that becomes actual conviction. And I know, you know the way that I look at the cycle? I look at the cycle like 90% of my altcoin bags are actually going to fail. But there are going to be 3 or 4 things where the market is, where they're not going to fail. And those are the ones where I'm actually going to be putting, a lot of my money. And by the end of the cycle, I don't want to be holding a lot of small things. I don't want to be holding a lot of small bags that I don't have conviction in. Okay, someone says, yeah, BMD says, conviction is not hope. Conviction is not hope. And it's true. Conviction is not hope. Be careful not to mix convictions, not to mix conviction with hope. Be very, very, very careful. I did want to speak about that for a couple of seconds. I mean, the other thing which I saw, so basically, where are we now? The CPI dump is completely reversed. And we're carrying on specifically on Bitcoin. And you can see that. You can see that if you look at the Bitcoin price, here we are. You can see the price is back at 69,300 and it's looking very good. But the reality is that I know that most of you aren't actually holding Bitcoin. In fact, let me know in the comments if the majority of your portfolio is actually Bitcoin. I know for a fact that it's not. I know that you guys are altcoin degens and the majority of your bags are actually in altcoins, right? And the problem is that when I look at the altcoin bags over here, you can see that, like, I'm just using one random example. That's 𝗬𝗓𝗡𝗏. 𝗬𝗓𝗡 is now 40% down from its recent high. So even though Bitcoin is down like 3% from its recent high, 𝗬𝗓𝗡 is just a proxy for many of our altcoin bags, which are, I mean, Injective is down 40%, 𝗬𝗓𝗡𝗏 is down 30%, Akash is down 38%, Render is down 33%, 𝗬𝗓𝗡 is down 35%. Optimism down. Look at these numbers. And these are, what we call A-grade good bags. These A-grade good bags are down up to 60%. So what I think we're actually experiencing now is we're actually experiencing a very, very, very serious altcoin correction. So even though Bitcoin is being held up by the ETFs, and it is making us feel like everything is safe, what's going on in the background is that we're actually in the middle of quite a brutal altcoin correction. I mean, I got some text today from some community members and said, like our alt bags are dying. And I hear you, I feel you. It does feel like our altcoin bags are actually really getting killed. But I want to show you something. I want to show you something that, when I started looking at the research for the show, I want to just show you something. So I'm going to go into the daily chart of Bitcoin. And I'm going to remind you of this pattern that we had over here, where there was this bullish flag which was being printed on Bitcoin. So it felt like the price of Bitcoin was going down. And then we had this bullish flag, and we actually broke out of this bullish flag. We had one of them over here. We keep having these bullish flags. We had one over here as well. We keep having these bullish flags. When I go to the 𝗦𝗚𝗡 chart, and I'm using 𝗦𝗚𝗡 as just one chart, this is exactly what you had. You had a bullish flag over here. We went up, and now we're consolidating, and it looks to me like we're starting to consolidate in another bullish flag. So right now, yes, we are 40% down, but you know exactly what's about to happen. You know exactly what's about to happen. We're about to potentially take off. So don't be fooled, and don't be shaken out by this correction right now. We're simply consolidating after an aggressive move up in many of the altcoins. And I'm only using one chart here. You can probably take this chart and do the same thing here. So here's the 𝗦𝗚𝗡 chart. Let's just, for fun, let's just go into the injective chart. Okay, so that's the injective USD chart. By the way, we hold all of these tokens. What do you see here? You see exactly the same thing. You see flag, consolidation, breakout. Flag, consolidation. What's the next thing? A breakout. Right now, we're in probably a correction, which is actually very, very, very much a consolidation. And as a result, a lot of retail traders aren't trading. And I want to show you two of these spreadsheets. So I'm looking at two types of tokens in this consolidation. The first kind of token that I'm looking at in this consolidation is I'm looking for tokens that recover quickly or that aren't really affected by the consolidation. I look at those tokens and I say to myself, those are the narratives for the next cycle. The next part tokens that I'm looking at is I look for tokens that have had a big pullback. And I say, hold on a second, maybe there's value here. Okay, so two buckets that I'm looking at. One bucket is the ones that are strong and not moving. There's a narrative. There's a reason why they're not moving. Probably we should hold those for the next cycle. The other ones maybe aren't for the next cycle, but they may have a huge recovery very, very, very soon. So let's look at some of the actual tokens. So Telegram's, despite some altcoins being down 40%, Telegram is down 5% from its all-time high. This token does not stop. Now, why do I think this token does not stop? Next week in Dubai, the founder of Telegram, who's never spoken at a crypto conference, is going to be speaking. And he's speaking with 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓. Now, 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 is from Circle. Circle does USDC. Anyone have any ideas what they would potentially discuss at Token 2049 next month? Let me know in the chat. Hold on a second. Ray, you're a smart guy. Do you know what they go? I mean, if 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓, USDC and Pavel and from Telegram are on the same panel next month, what are they next week? What are they going to discuss?
Definitely a stablecoin payment on Telegram.
You see, and Ray's extremely smart, but I think everybody knows exactly.
Has nothing to do with being smart.
Exactly. You see, then let's look over here. So you got Pendle, which is really playing off the real world asset narrative. Also not down a lot. Alephium, there's this huge proof of work thing. So I'll drop this spreadsheet for you guys. But what I wanted you to see that there are some tokens that are really, really, really performing very well. And there's some tokens that have really taken huge smacks. And as a result of the fact that they've taken huge hits, it may almost be time to buy them soon. You look at Stride. Stride is down 58% from its local high. You look at Astroport, it's 50% down from its local high. These are very, very, very high quality tokens. These are not bad tokens. These are all extremely, extremely, extremely high quality tokens. And they are all down huge amounts from their all-time high. And these guys are getting into buy zones very, very, very soon. Very soon we should actually start aping into these ones. And that's what we'll do in the next couple of days. In the next couple of days, what we'll do is we will get these tokens. We'll start making real buy lists out of these tokens. But I mean, pretty much if you're looking for a buy list, here is your buy list. You can see that in the relative strength one, Telegram, Pendle, the real world asset narrative is actually on fire. I want to just show you something. So this is one of our sponsors. You know they're one of our sponsors because I've told you this a million times. does this token look like it gives a shit about the correction? So again, like, does this token look like it gives a shit about the correction? Of course not. Why? One is because there is a real world asset narrative that is happening. But the other thing is that these guys have launched their, I wonder if I've actually got, so they have launched their testnet for, let me just tell you what it's called. It's called the Hongbai testnet, which allows for real world assets. So what it says here is, it says, opens up opportunities for nearly 100,000 participants to explore Mantra's infrastructure. And they're looking for developers and users, and you should follow their Twitter account if you want to be part of the 100,000 people that actually test this. But I'm just trying to show you that there's two types of tokens. One is the type of token that is showing you the narrative for what's about to happen, and the other narrative is the tokens that are good, have a big drawdown, and are probably worth buying soon. Example, I would start nibbling into 𝗬𝗓𝗡𝗏 now, because we know that your upside is potentially pretty huge. So I'm going to highlight 𝗬𝗓𝗡𝗏 here as one that I'm potentially starting to look at. ETH layer 2, not that bullish about ETH layer 2 yet. Celestia, to be honest, I think if this one gets like $9, I start aping. Let's look at some other ones. 𝗦𝗘𝗖𝗨𝗥𝗜𝗧, if it gets down to like the 55s, we start aping. Phantom, actually, to be honest, should be on the other sheet, because I mean, now you're talking about less than 20%. Solana, we told you that Solana season would die down and we'd get another season, and the other season's starting to happen. Astropause, tried. Here we go. I'm putting these in red. These are already ready to it. But we'll do a buy list in the next couple of days, which will be a much more comprehensive buy list. But I just wanted to show you that there are two types of tokens in the cycle. There are two types of tokens in the cycle. Someone says Dylan doesn't like Celestia. Dylan's looking at the charts. I'm looking at the fundamentals. They're not going to align all the time. I'll tell you that much. Anyway, let's get to the next part of the show. I did say to you guys that I was in Paris. You know that I'm in Paris. I just want to show you where I am in Paris. And I also said to you, that I think that in the next part of the bull market, that there's going to be a whole lot of narratives that actually starts performing. And one of them is the move narrative. Anyway, today, as you know, I went to 𝗬𝗎 Basecamp, which is the 𝗬𝗎 protocol. And I think they're first, but I may be wrong, but it's one of their big events. It's called Basecamp. And it's almost like Solana Breakpoint or ETH DevCon in the old days. And that's actually the reason why I flew to Paris, because I wanted to really, really, really understand the 𝗬𝗎 ecosystem. It's very easy to call a token and read all the research on a token, but until you actually go there and you meet the people and you get the ethos, you don't really know the truth about the protocol. So let me tell you that I came to Paris very curious, and I can tell you that I was actually quite blown away. So I want to, this is videos that I took. They're not professional videos. This is what I saw today. I just want to give you a feel for the atmosphere. So you see the halls were very, very full. So you see, as you can see, the halls were very, very, very full. You can see that. You can see very much, like, I don't know if you can see it, but certainly I felt it when I was there, but the type of people that were there were very high caliber people. In terms of like an atmosphere, actually, it reminded me of the early days of Solana. It reminded me of like 3 or 4 times breakpoints ago, where you had these smart people really building amazing technology, really. And I must say, one of the things that really stuck out for me with the 𝗬𝗎 Foundation or the 𝗬𝗎 devs, technically, these are like some of the smartest people around. They very, very, very much remind me of the old days on Solana. And they're there with a mission. And the mission is that they want to make very, very, very easy smart contracts. And they want to make like blockchains very, very, very easy to use and very fast and stuff like that. And actually, the founder, the creator of, one of the founders of 𝗬𝗎, but was the creator of the Move language, which was actually developed at Facebook, and that's this guy over here. Now, I managed to steal, so like, don't tell them, because if you tell them, they're going to be really upset with me, but I managed to somehow get my hands on the deck from one of the founders. So the CPO and co-founder, his name is 𝗦𝗛𝗘𝗏𝗏. He's a Nigerian living in the US. So I mean, don't tell them this. You know, if you do watch the show, don't tell them that you've seen this. But I managed to steal his presentation, which I'm not sure I was supposed to get. But in a nutshell, what they show is how much 𝗬𝗓 has actually grown. So TVL went to $737 million. They got 8.9 million active users, 2.93 billion transactions. They've had 0 attacks. They've had 100% downtime. I think that was kind of an attack against Solana. They got a very, very, very fast blockchain, 400 milliseconds average time to finality. That's very, very, very big. Now, one of the things that they're really, really, really focusing on is gaming. And a lot of ecosystems are focusing on gaming, but I'll show you in a second what they've done. Now, they've obviously gone for gaming because they know that the Web3 niche is definitely going to be a gaming niche, and that, you know, gaming is going to bring in the first 1 billion users into crypto, right? So why are gaming developers using 𝗬𝗓? Because it's fast, because it's cheap, because it's stable, and it really is a good blockchain for gaming. So I do believe that these guys can actually do a whole lot of big things when it comes to gaming. And then they had an announcement. So what they announced, or what they unveiled, was this. And I'm going to try. Okay, so great. Okay, I don't want to play too much of the sound, because if I do, I'm going to get a copyright strike. But they unveiled a 𝗬𝗓 handheld gaming console. In terms of the 𝗬𝗓 handheld gaming console, it can do Web 2 and Web 3, so you can play your Microsoft games and you can play your Web 3 games. You can bridge assets from any chain onto the 𝗬𝗓 chain with full ownership and royalty enforcement. And royalty enforcement's a big thing, because I don't know if you remember the old NFT wars, where the NFT creators were promised royalties, but then as soon as the marketplaces didn't make any money, they reversed the royalty enforcement, and that's it. That was like the end of the protection for the creators. So 𝗬𝗓 unveils this console. They also had a whole lot of other announcements. So I mean, look, they're all in on gaming, just so you're clear. When you go there, the feeling that you get is these guys are all in on gaming, and there's really, really, really cool games being built on 𝗬𝗓. The niche, what they're going for is they're going for gaming. But they also had a whole lot of other announcements. That wasn't the only things that they had. One is they talked about a new consensus mechanism, which will give them very, very, very fast consensus. Number one. They spoke about a whole lot of projects that are now, like 𝗬𝗓 Lend, now out of beta. They spoke about integrations with 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏. 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏 being the, you know, where you get your meme coin information from. And they're saying, look, is this going to usher a whole meme coin season into 𝗬𝗓? So they said, yeah, meme coin season, who's joining us? And speaking of meme coins, you know, there is the meme coin called 𝗕𝗤𝗕𝗙 on 𝗬𝗓, $40 million market cap, by the way, if you're looking, and obviously the pug was there. Then they spoke about a native stablecoin coming to 𝗬𝗓, and this was the Hong Kong, you know, the first, I think it's the first regulated stablecoin in Hong Kong. It's called FDUSD, now going to be coming to the 𝗬𝗓 network. There's a launch pad, obviously 𝗬𝗓 pad. In fact, again, here's a spreadsheet for you guys of all the projects that we are looking at in the 𝗬𝗓 ecosystem. CETUS, which is a DEX, Turbo Finance, which is the second biggest DEX, Flow, Navi Protocol, Scallop, 𝗕𝗏𝗕𝗙. What is this? New meme coin. Okay, so there's a new meme coin. There's a 𝗬𝗓 pad. So we'll drop the spreadsheet for you guys. But I think important for you guys to understand that there is a new narrative and a new ecosystem in town. I went there myself. I saw it. I met the people. I went there myself. I saw it. I met the people. It does very much remind me of the old days of Solana. This is definitely a force to be reckoned with. You know we're long 𝗬𝗓. Of course, you know we're long 𝗬𝗓. And now you've got to make a call as to whether you want to take a bet on another blockchain and whether the 𝗬𝗓 is cheap enough for you to buy in it. Because remember, even though it's a very good ecosystem, it's still like pretty expensive. When I say pretty expensive, probably not relative to where it can get to, but you're talking about a fully diluted valuation of $15 billion, you know, versus Solana, which is, I would say, probably 2 to 3 years ahead of 𝗬𝗓. 2 to 3 years ahead of 𝗬𝗓, and it is at a $100 billion valuation. Now, in terms of Solana, in terms of 𝗬𝗓, I would go as far as to say that the tech at 𝗬𝗓 is probably a little bit better, but untested than the tech at Solana. So I think like the move language and the thinking behind the move language is a little bit better than the Rust language and what Solana was written in. But remember that in technology, it's not only about technology, it's about network effect. And Solana has very much more of a network effect than Sui has. So I would say that this is a good bet. If you're going to be taking a bet on another blockchain. I also think that if you look at all the news that's come out and gaming, and I mean, let's just. Okay, so someone says sound. I don't know if you could maybe not hear that. I don't know if
no sound. No sound.
Oh, there was no sound. So okay, pretty, because I could hear that, and it was actually quite cool. So sorry about that. So interesting that you didn't have sound. Anyway, so that's the Sui story, very much made for gaming. And to be honest, I do think that we're about to see another gaming run. The gaming tokens have been hit really, really, really hard. But there's a lot of announcements that are happening in gaming. So first of all, as Sui all in on gaming. Everyone's starting to realize the potential of the gaming tokens. We had Illuvium partnering up with Samsung. So leaders in entertainment joined forces. We partnered up with Samsung to bring Illuvium to homes around the globe. Get ready for a collaboration that combines best of cutting-edge technology. The future is bright. We had another announcement, WildWorld, also announcing something to do with Samsung. So bringing gaming to the masses. Then we had Gunzilla Games. Now, Gunzilla Games is a PlayStation game, a crypto PlayStation game, which is now coming out. So you can kind of see, like, there is this narrative being pieced together. We spoke yesterday about Saga. Saga is almost building a gaming ecosystem. And the way that they're building a gaming ecosystem is through these chainlets. These chainlets are subnets or chains that gaming developers can lease very, very, very cheaply and launch their own games. And that's what Saga has basically created. They have created a let me kill this. So they have created a gaming hub of the interchain. In other words, all these gaming chains that are going to going to start talking to each other will start doing so. All these Saga gaming chains will actually start talking to each other. So there is going to be very much a narrative of gaming coming up. I think we'll start getting Hustle on here and start talking about these games. In the meantime, if you want to check out some of the cool games that are our sponsors, I want to show you two that I really like. One of them is, of course, Fakana Games. So they're one of our sponsors, as you know. I see that the guys are trying to tell me that there is no sound. Okay, I know there's no sound. We've resolved that. So this is Fakana Games. It is a multiplayer game. It's a hero shooter game. It's a great AAA game. They are one of our sponsors. Probably worth going to check them out. You can check out like how cool the games and the graphics look here. The other one, which I think is probably worth looking at, is it's a real life and metaverse game. It's called Reality Metaverse. Now, what these guys have done is what they're trying to do is they're trying to merge real life and metaverse. So imagine like you're living in two lives and the two really cross with each other, right? And that is what Reality Metaverse is. And they are one of our sponsors. We will be talking about them quite a bit more. You can see they've had a very, very, very good token performance. But I really want to put this one on your map, because if these guys get what they want to get right and they can bring the real world and the metaverse into one place, then I think we've got ourselves a game. I think we've really got ourselves a game here. So that is another one. All right, listen, just quickly before we go, had a great day today with Gummy. So we are in Paris. Saw amazing things. I saw this guy, by the way. He showed me how he's farming his Gummy points. He says his friends have actually bought extra phones to farm. That's how crazy is that people are actually buying extra phones to farm points. I know a lot of you are farming points. I know a lot of you have lost points. Don't worry, you haven't lost the points. Someone says play the Gummy song. I don't think I've got it here. I don't have it here. I don't have the right soundboard here. Yes, also remember, if you haven't yet got your Blowfin account, you need to get your Blowfin account. Get your Blowfin account. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard for us to airdrop. Where do you get the Blowfin account from? You go to here. For those of you who don't know, Crypto Banter. and you go to the bottom of this show, which is this show over here, and over here, and you go and sign up here. Sign up for Blofin. And remember, if you're going to sign up for Blofin, put money in your accounts, because there's a lot of people that botted this whole thing. And if you haven't had money in your account, you ain't going to get the airdrop. So make sure you have money in the account. Anyway, listen, guys, lots to do today. I'm going to go now to some networking dinners and stuff like that. If you see me at the dinners, yeah, let's hang out. Let's have some fun. Otherwise, I will see you guys again. Not sure I'll do a show tomorrow. I'll try and bring you a show every day. But otherwise, if not, I'll definitely see you guys on Friday. Until then, guys, trade well, my friends.